Come along, children. Now we're going to have a little music.
What is up, guys? We're back talking about Mulan. Now we're going to get into the 2020 live-action film, a film that obviously we can go on and on about the whole release structure of this thing. It was supposed to come out in March. It was supposed to be a massive release, especially internationally, with the Chinese box office being so important nowadays. Unfortunately, due to COVID, due to everything that's been going on in the world, they decided to release it online. I've had a lot of fun debates and conversations about my issues with the idea of giving that $30 paywall, making it so much more harder for families to watch it. I thought was necessarily not the right choice. However, besides all that, let's talk about the film itself. We all got the chance to see it. I'm going to go straight to you, RB3. I want to hear your initial thoughts as far as what you've seen of this movie.
Yeah, thank you for briefing it as what I've seen, because that is indeed true. I have not seen all of Mulan. Unfortunately, I did hook y'all up with the screen information via Dorian. Salute to Dorian, Geek Scholar. But I did not get to finish it. Just a busy day today. So I got about an hour in, but I feel like I can still give meaningful commentary like halfway through. But don't consider anything that I say a final review or a final thoughts or final opinions on Mulan, because I'm literally just observing it as someone who saw the first hour of it, not the whole thing. So,
any thoughts that you have so far?
my thoughts. Okay, so here are my thoughts. Right. I personally, let me just go. Let's talk about adaptations in general. The Disney adaptations, right? The live action ones. I'm not the biggest fan of them. I really don't like any of them except for Jungle Book and Peach Dragon and a couple of others. But there's a couple. But I don't like them because most of the time they don't feel like they add anything, and the things that they do add doesn't need to be added like whatsoever. With Mulan, that was particularly worrying for me because it's like, what usually the biggest thing that they add is like the whole like, oh, we know these characters were like poorly written when they were originally written in like the 50s or the 70s or the 90s. So let's like try and update it to make it more feminist and make it more woke and more progressive. But the problem with it is that they just, for me, my problem was that with Aladdin, they just added a song and acted like it was okay. And The Lion King, they just added a little bit more for Beyonce and thought it was okay. And it's like, you're not really doing much. For Mulan, the material is already there. So I was kind of thinking like they don't need to add that much. Like they don't have to do anything like that. They could just kind of tell the story, and I'm excited for it. What also made me more excited was hearing that they took out all the songs. I know a lot of people were like discouraged by that. I thought that was dope because it's like, hey, this is another way to make it different. Instead of it being like an animated thing that you are for the kids, this can be the adult, not necessarily adult version, but more adult, mature version of Mulan without the songs, still the same story, but be more of a serious war movie. And I thought the aesthetic and everything was already there for it too. Now, what's interesting about this movie is they actually did all the Mulan versions of it, at least from what I've seen so far. I think they did all the Mulan stuff really, really good. Like the animated movie goes at a rapid pace for telling Mulan's story, and the first hour of this movie goes to a rapid pace to telling Mulan's story. The thing that slows it down is that they add another parallel story to the mix with this witch and like this kingdom thing, and I'm not really fully understanding where that's going so far. Again, y'all could probably speak more to that. I know we're having a full spoiler discussion here, so people be mindful of that. We might be spoiling some things, but the Mulan stuff I thought worked really, really well, and I thought it was great seeing that live action, and I liked it even without the songs. I still really liked it. I just don't know about the witch stuff because those scenes felt incredibly slow, incredibly unnecessary, and I get the idea of like this is an antagonist and a villain who's also dealing with the same patriarchal issues as our main hero, and kind of seeing that parallel story. And at least it's not adding like a new song or something cheesy to it. It's actually adding something with a storyline and character and stuff like that. I appreciate that, but I just don't like how it slows down the film.
Yeah, Sabrina, I feel like to echo what RB3 is saying, this movie is going to be made or broken by, make or break with that new witch character. Talk to me about that specifically, and then your initial thoughts on the movie itself.
Yeah, I think going into this one, I don't know how much this relates. I don't know if they I guess they might have just added it just to have that kind of parallel type of character that went through the same thing, but she chose the wrong path of becoming a villain and actually causing like harm and evil. And I don't know if that had anything to do with, because I know they're sticking closer to the actual story of Mulan that dates back to like the 5th or 6th century. So obviously, I don't think this has anything to do with it. It's something that was really kind of like for the first hour, I was kind of like, I don't know about this. And at the end, I didn't mind it necessarily, but I think they could have done without it, and it just the story would have been equally as profound. I just don't really. It kind of took me out a little bit with the whole witch when she was as a bird going through. I don't really know how to feel about that, and I would really have to on a rewatch kind of just because the way it panned out, it's a fine moment, but was it worth it for that entire through line throughout the entire film? I don't necessarily know. But as for adaptations, I'm the same way as RB3, and I echo a lot of what he said, where if it feels if it's actually going to progress the story, then I'm here for it. But if it's just like a cash grab or like adapting to like modern audiences, maybe kids don't want to watch the older animation and they want to see this live action, then I'm not really here for it. Like Lion King was like shot for shot, basically, and I just think that's unnecessary. But something like this, I like what they did. I like that they stuck to that original story and they kind of honored China and their culture a little bit more because they did have all of those actors. We have a really really great ensemble in this film, and they actually, like I mentioned with the dialogue animated one, they actually speak like they're from China in the 5th or 6th century. Like it felt more real, like we're immersed into this world, and it's not as flamboyant and eccentric and things like that as we saw in the animated film, also with characters like Mushu. So I liked what they did, but it some points kind of felt a little bit duller and a little bit flatter. I like the film, but it didn't hit as I think the animated did one when I was a kid.
It's interesting you say these things. Obviously, let's address the elephant in the room, which is the Disney live action adaptations. I am that guy. You guys know that. I am the one defender of all these movies. I pretty much enjoy every single one of them uh, because of what you said, Sabrina. And it's interesting you guys say that because you guys want change, you want advancement in the story, and yet I'm a very simplistic guy. So I just like the idea of what you were saying, Sabrina, the idea that we do get to see a live action Asian characters be badass and be cool and be awesome. Live action Middle Eastern actors, the Egyptian brother who played Aladdin, that's an opportunity that's a once in a lifetime type of thing. And I love that he gets that chance. I love that we get to see that in live action. And I don't think necessarily that I think that within itself is worth a price of admission or worth the price of making the movie. That's the only reason why I push back, because I do feel like there is something to be said about these people being brought to tears on set because they're so inspired and moved by seeing so many Asians in this world and in this screen and in the set that they're in. I think that's a powerful moment within itself. So that's my thing about that. My thing about the movie, it's interesting, RB3. You know what's funny? I didn't like the first half of this movie, and I kind of did enjoy the second half more. So
I'm the opposite.
really, yeah, I thought the first half was really tonally unbalanced. I thought the comedy stuff didn't work with the buddy characters, at least from what I saw. I just was like, man, these guys are not as funny and as crisp as the original animated characters that are already super funny. Even just watching the old movie again, I was like, wow, these guys are still funny. I thought the comedy stuff didn't work for them. I just didn't care necessarily for the first half. I didn't like necessarily the power dynamic between her father in the first half, whereas the second half, when we started to get to the more action stuff, when we started to get reveals when it comes to the witch character, reveals when it comes to her eventually revealing that she is a woman, that she is Mulan, I love that they were immediately against that and that it didn't have this twist of like, well, actually, they accept her and everything's okay. I was like, if that happens, I probably won't like it because it doesn't make any sense. And the fact that Donnie Yen was kind of a dick in that scene, Sabrina, I don't know if you saw that scene yet, RB3, but when she reveals herself to be a woman, he's like, F out of here. Like, and I was like, really? I thought we were supposed to like Donnie Yen, but they make him kind of a dick in that moment, and I was like, yeah, he probably would be a dick. Stuff like that to me worked uh, in those moments, and the idea of her kind of teaming up with the witch. Spoiler alert, RB3. That part made sense to me, and that part kind of made it worth it for me. And we don't get that till the second half, because in the first half she's just an evil witch. Uh, in the second half, she proves herself to be an ally to Mulan because she's a woman, and because she sees that kinship with her as being a two powerful women, two women that don't want to abide by the rules and abide by the laws. I like that. I thought that was really cool. That's why to me the second half worked better. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I thought with that necessarily, I did, like I said, I thought there was like a few great moments within it, but I didn't think the way they portrayed it was like as, I didn't know if I believed it that she would make that like split decision like that just with Mulan saying a few things if she's been evil this entire time. It's kind of like when we get those moments from the villains when they realize what they did was wrong, even though she was in her same footsteps before. So like I understand it, but I don't know if it was worth the entire character for me. But
Sure.
I do want to echo because I don't want to be negative about this. I enjoyed this movie. Um, it's really tough with everything that's happening, and of course we're not talking about like the release scheduling, but I think I am a tiny bit soured by that high price point for the film on Disney Plus. I think that's something because it's really not going to reach a lot of families because that's even though we're like, oh, when we go to a theater, we spend more than that, it's still thinking about per family. It's a high price to pay to sit at your own house. At least you get to pay for the whole experience when you see it in theaters. And I'm just soured by that kind of release. I would have honestly rather have them push it back. Maybe we could go and all enjoy it in a theater. At the end of the day, this is the biggest movie we have gotten so far. This is the biggest movie that's got on VOD, and this is probably the biggest movie that we're going to really see and are going to see because a lot of people come to theaters. Um, so if you're not, this is it. And I like it for that aspect. I like the celebration, of course, of the story. The story in itself is great because it's a very similar story to what we saw. So I like that young women are going to be able to see that, and we are getting that representation of a strong female character, but then also a strong Asian female character. I absolutely love that, and showing again that she's a warrior. But it wasn't so profound and something so new and re-energized that I felt like it was completely necessary. Um, but I mean, out of all the live action ones, I could say that I probably like this a lot more than the other ones. Like honestly,
Yeah,
because I don't really
I do
like
too.
Aladdin, I don't like Lion King. Yeah, so this is the better Disney live action film for sure. But I'm still
Mhm.
just soured by the entire Disney live action in general too.
Yeah, and I think I definitely I agree, Sabrina. I like this a lot more than I like a lot of the other ones so far. I haven't seen all of it so far, but there is there's kind of conversation happening, and we're shooting this well before the movie comes out. Like you're seeing, the people watching at home have already seen it, but we've seen it where it is a couple of days before the movie comes out, so we don't even know what other critics are saying. But I heard there's kind of whispers amongst critic friends that this movie's just alright. There's a reason they just put it on Disney Plus. You know what I mean? Do y'all agree with that as two people who have actually completed the full movie, or?
That's the problem, right? With what Sabrina's saying. Yeah, that's 100%. If I would review this movie, I would be like, it's I. That's exactly my review. And the problem with that is that you have to pay $30 for a $200 million I. If it was free on Disney Plus, if there was no paywall, I would be like, it's I. Go check it out. Like it's dope. Yeah, it's fun. It's got some fun
Even in
moments.
theaters.
Yeah, I would even in theaters, I would have been like, yeah, go check it out. Mulan doing backflips. Why not? But now that it has that $30 payroll, it's just so hard to be like, you have to pay $30 to watch this movie. I mean, obviously, again, we could talk about the whole idea of my family and my mom just being so excited for this movie. Every time she sees a trailer, she geeks out. So that's a different case. But other people around the country and around the world might be like, I heard it's I don't know if I'm gonna pay $30. And that's my problem, man. Is like that is a big thing, Sabrina, and I'm glad you brought it up for sure. But for the movie on its own, because I feel like we should talk about it on its own, which is difficult to do, I know, because we have to think about the original, we have to think about the way it was shot, the whole release structure of it. But on its own, there's just a little bit of tone issues for me in the beginning of the movie and towards the end of the movie that kind of make me frustrated. And there's a little bit of, and I know I'm going to be that guy, and I'm so sorry, and I usually don't like to be that guy, CGI issues. I don't know if you caught this, Sabrina, or even you, RB3, in the first half, that really just like, whoop, took me out of the movie. And I was like, this does not look real at all. But a few of those that kind of took me out. But the main thing to me was the tone. I really would have loved to love her crew. If her squad was lit, like if she had like a straight up squad, like I got the funny guy, the goofy guy, the big guy, the small guy, and they were all like super like interactive and dynamic, I think I would have loved this movie. But that's my biggest issue with it, is her squad was just so flat to me. The arrow guy, I thought was just, none of his jokes hit for me. The skinny homie, I thought I thought he was probably the best part, but the only problem was like I felt like he had the less lines than anyone else. He said like 3 lines. And then her love interest, we have to talk about that, right? I think it's so funny, and I will always think it's funny no matter who does it, because this isn't the first time we see a woman go undercover as a man or whatever. But I love it when homeboy is like, "Yo, bro, I think I'm catching feelings for you, dog." Like that whole like vibe, as far as like, "Yo, bro, you kind of cute, man." Right? Am I the only one who thinks that as I'm watching the movie? I'm just like, oh.
If she was a man, she'd be a very beautiful man. It was a little harder to
Yeah,
kind
I'd
of
be like, "You're a pretty
blend
man."
her in. Yeah, it was a little bit harder with this in particular to actually believe that people would think that she was a man. That was another thing that it
Yeah,
just and the actress is great in the scenes, like she's really really great, but it is a lot harder. I mean, if I was there, I'd be like, damn, you're pretty as hell. Like
yeah. I'd be
it,
like,
it
"Bro,
really is one of those
you're
things.
cute."
Yeah, and that's the tough thing about making this into a live action, because in the animated version we talked about how they were able to like disguise Mulan very well within it, and this one it does kind of stick out a little bit, not just in terms of like the fighting style or anything, but just the aesthetics and the way that this actress like is dressed up as this character. And it's like you said, it just a lot of these moments do really fall flat. I finished it during the movie. I was like, oh wow, okay, these are nice moments. And then afterwards, it's one of those that I'm not really thinking about it. Like, it's unfortunately, and it sucks so bad, because I mean, we have this strong female character, and in the third act, the fighting sequences and like her style of fighting and how light she is on her feet, I think it's very whimsical, and it's very powerful. It's this mixture of this like feminine power that we really see within her fighting, and I love all of that. But at the end of the day, I'm unfortunately not really. I don't want to give this like an immediate rewatch. But when I see a film like Mad Max and I see like Furiosa, I'm like, I need to watch this again. I need to see everything. And this is one of those where I have the screener and I don't really feel the need to sit down and watch it again for a second time and really dive myself into it, because a lot of the things. But I do love that they stuck to that original story. Like I said before, I like how they stuck to that story that's been going around for centuries in China. And we also get a little bit of, in the beginning, her as a child and how she's in this way. I love that. I really did in the film. I love that we see how adventurous and courageous she is as a kid, and how because in the animated one we see her already when she's an adult that she doesn't fit in. But then in this one, we see her that she's a kid, and she hasn't fit in at all ever. And I like that. I like that element of seeing that small moment in the beginning. So there's a little bit of stuff that I love that they added to it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I would rather watch the anime version. I think it's just more profound. I think it holds up so much better than this film does.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's unfortunate.
That's the problem, right? If the animated version wasn't perfect, because it's a perfect movie, to be honest, I think it's perfect. This one has a lot to live up to. And to be honest, guys, I know RB3, you said it was cool, but I can't lie. Part of me was like, if Homegirl broke out in a song right now, it'd be kind of cool. I'd be like, it'd be kind of dope if she broke out in song. I would have loved it if she started singing. That's probably my biggest criticism is that people say Mulan, the songs are, I think Mulan soundtrack, as I said before, is one of the best all time. So if she did break out in song a few times, I would have been like, yo, this movie's kind of fire though, because it gives her more literally reflection on her character and reflection on herself. I think it would have worked to make it a musical. I'm sorry, y'all.
Well, I'm glad you said it because the thing is, like I said before, when we were talking about the animated version, I was saying that we get so much story within those songs, like we really do, and we learn so much more about the characters. And like you said, those supporting characters really fell flat. Even her love interest fell flat for me, and I just didn't really get that same sense that I got from the animated. But if we would have had those songs, I'm so happy you said it because if we would have had those songs, I think we would have connected with a lot of these characters a little bit more. Hearing Reflection, could you imagine hearing Reflection, a different version in today's day, like like not saying that they have to change the song in any way, but like a new version of it. I would have loved to hear that. I would have loved to have Make a Man Out of You in it, and then we get attached to those characters that she's fighting with because ultimately at the end of the day I'm like, oh, I hope it's Mulan, I know she's gonna make it out, I hope she makes it out, but I didn't really care about anybody else, and it really just went that way. I was like, I hope she does the job. I don't really care what happens to like any of the other characters too much.
That's exactly it. Is I feel like her side characters would have been more improved as more compelling characters if they had moments and songs and musical numbers. Frankly, I'm like pro musical numbers. I think it would have been fun. I think it would have been a lot more character development. I think it would have been a lot cuter. It would have been a lot more fun, a lot better for the kids to understand, and better for adults to enjoy as well, as far as nostalgia goes, because that's what they're trying to get as well. I just think that the emotional moments in the second half of the film actually work for me. Her final fight scene worked. Her encounter with her dad worked. Her new sword stuff thing worked. All that new stuff added into it. Even her being presented in front of the emperor was still a very emotional moment to me. I was like, oh, this is great. It works. And we got to see Ming Na Wen come in there for a little quick cameo. Shout out to her. She's the original Mulan. Came back for a quick cameo. And she's obviously Agent May, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I have to do that. But yeah, overall, the problem is there's too many downs for this movie for me to make it a full up, if that makes sense. I think it's equally balanced out where there's enough good moments where I'm just like, I can recommend it, but there's not enough good moments to where I can say it's my favorite live action Disney film. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I haven't seen the whole thing, but it's on the higher tier for me. But even the higher tier Disney films, live action films are not even like that great either. So I would I would kind of even put it at like, I think I put it right at 3 out of 5 personally. I'm not, I'm not usually the one to give scores, but Rotten Tomatoes is like 60%, like positive, right at the middle. So I'll give it right at the positive line for me. But again, I've only seen the first half of it, so it could go bad from there.
Yeah, like if we didn't have these screeners and a friend called me up and was like, I'm doing an outdoor projection, social distance screening of it and I'm paying for it, so like I'm just inviting you, I'd be like, yeah, I'd watch it. But would I sit down and purchase it myself, seek it out myself if it wasn't in theaters? Not really. It's where positive where I'll watch it again, I'll check it out again possibly, but I I recommend it, but it's not the best. But also, I agree with you where it's at the higher level of Disney. But that's because I don't like a lot of the Disney live action movies.
And I do. And I love the new Beauty and the Beast. I love that song, Evermore. I sing that joy every time I think about a girl. I'm just like singing that song at the top of my lungs. That song goes hard. It should have been, I think it was Oscar nominated. Oscar nominated song. Uh, I love it. And I think it would have been so cool, even if we got new songs. If Homeboy Love Interest for Mulan busted out in I don't know, like a dope ass song, I think it would have been dope. I would have loved it.
It's interesting because we had like 30 extra minutes of runtime. We took out all the songs, but I feel like there was no development in any way with that extra runtime that added to the story necessarily. I think I would have loved if they used some of that time to add those songs or add those types of moments, and they just didn't.
Yeah.
This is longer, and there's less to work with.
Part of me wonders if they should have just took out the witch and just kept all the songs in and just made it a straightforward adaptation, because I did like the pacing of it. That's one thing I did enjoy. I did like the pacing of it, because a lot of these movies do feel kind of slow, but I like that it felt kind of fast in the Mulan moments. The witch moments in the beginning, not so much. That's where it kind of slowed down for me. But
I'm so curious about what people are going to think about that character, because I get the point of the character by the end, but in the beginning, she seems so like whatever. By the end, we get to see the whole like girl power moment, which I do feel like it is important,
right.
because it shows that her only goal and her only motive is to kind of defy men and to go against men. So it kind of made sense to me that she would kind of team up with Mulan, or at least defend Mulan, because she sees that girl on girl connection where she's like, I see you. You're a powerful woman like me. But the whole idea of the chi being the amplification of her martial arts skills, and then the chi being the amplification of her witch powers, and having that connection there, I wasn't too sure about that, if I'm being honest. I think it would have been a little bit cooler to see Mulan have to train to get her martial arts abilities, rather than to just be a gifted natural talent. That's just my opinion. That's the only negative thing that I was like, oh, that would have been cool.
I like that if we would have gotten some of that, because clearly we got the footage from when she was a child and she had some type of like agile ability, and she could have had that and then worked from there instead of just having that natural ability. So I agree with what you're saying. I feel like there's just a lot to be desired from this one that it just doesn't give us. I feel like we could honestly talk about it for a while and really nitpick it. And, this is really, really fresh in our minds. We haven't sat on it, and we're talking about it. We've all seen it today, and we're all talking about it cuff. And that's what's interesting, is that we are able to continue on this conversation and constantly find something. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that really could have improved the story. And if I didn't even think about too much about like the love interest, because it was so dull, it didn't even stick with me at all, and I was like, there was nothing there. It really is one of those things.
Yeah, I really do feel like training sequences are so underrated. People hate them nowadays because they're cheesy, but it's a Disney movie. Like, it's supposed to be kind of cheesy. I think a training sequence where she improves her ability and you actually see that she learns how to fight would have been way cooler than just her being like a super powerful martial artist, like right off the bat. That's just
I
me.
want a training sequence. I want Bring Me to Life by Evanescence to
Oh,
play just like
hell
Daredevil.
yeah.
That's what I want. That's
Hell
what I
yeah.
want
Have
from
Mulan sing
Mulan.
it. Just be like, how
Exactly.
can you? She just starts going off. That'd be amazing. And then her like love interest does the other
Wake
part.
me up. Yes.
How the two sides couldn't see. Like
And
literally
this is
just
why
come
we
up.
don't make Disney movies. This is why they don't
Yeah.
hire us.
Also, like straight up, I still think it's so funny. He'd be like, "Yo, bro, I'm catching feelings, bro. Like, I'm just being honest, bro. Like, I'm just starting to catch feelings, cuz, like, straight up."
I'm feeling something. I'm feeling something here. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is.
Like, I'm gonna call up my mom and tell her that I'm having these conflicted feelings here.
Yeah, my pickle's getting a little tickled. You know what I mean?
He's like, "Hey, bro, you haven't taken a shower, though, cuz. Like, I haven't seen you take a shower, cuz." Like, the entire premise of that being, like, a theme in the movie, Sabrina, I thought was so funny. Just because of that, the idea that this guy is starting to have conflicted feelings, and he's, like, walking up in her tent and stuff, and I'm just like, bro, this ain't it, cuz. She's a
And then
girl.
she finally goes to take a bath, and then he's like, "What's up? What's good?" And it's like,
Yeah,
"No, leave her alone.
exactly.
Leave her alone."
Yeah,
And I know we have
exactly.
but the moment I feel like even oh god, it's so hard to not compare it to the animated film. It's really hard
Yeah.
to think of it as one single thing. But like the moment in the animated film where she's like bathing and the other guys come in is just so much better than what we got with this whole like big serious like oh I'm like go away just because she doesn't want to like reveal that she's a woman. It's those little things that I just feel like whoever was behind it didn't care enough to really develop a lot of the outside stuff, and that's what furthers any story. It's not just the protagonist, it's everyone around it, it's all of the elements working together, and it's like, oh, let's add another woman, because even that moment you're talking about, I didn't believe it. I like the girl power moment that we got, but I honestly just didn't really believe it too much. But I do understand like the defying men's expectations or defying what men want and things like that. But in it was too quick for me. Like they had that conversation, then it's like, no, I'm gonna go fly and I'll lead you there. I just it wasn't fleshed out enough, and we had more runtime, and they still didn't flesh out a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, I think overall those are kind of the same thoughts I echo. I mean, I thought it worked, but it just took so long to get there that I was like, man, I don't know if the witch character was worth it in the end because of that. Yeah, overall, I wish I could have gotten a little bit more, if I'm being honest, just because I've been anticipating this movie since even before it was announced. Um, there's, I actually predicted this way back in the Schmoes day. I think like 2015 when we were doing like what's the next Disney live action, and I was like, oh, Mulan, that would be amazing. And eventually we got it. Unfortunately, it's not living up to the expectations, which were pretty high, to be fair. It's a lot to live up to, so I do feel like that's a little bit unfair. But again, I think what brings it down is that $30 paywall, which makes it even worse. We're just like, ugh. Now it's really just okay. It would have been pretty good, but now it's just okay because of that $30 paywall, at least for a recommendation goes. But either way, those are our thoughts on the new live action Mulan. Obviously, we sprinkled in a little bit of our own POV thoughts as far as bringing me to life and Evanescence. It sprinkled a little bit of that on my Disney live action.
Just
Got
pretend
me.
it's there in the film, and maybe you'll like it a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly. Give me a Daredevil moment. Give me some bullseye.